Hangul for you. How does one shape or even eradicate another culture? Remove its language. As a social animal, communication is one of the key technological advances of humankind and essential to nearly everything we do, especially the study in front of you. In 104 AD, Han China Emperor Wu Di finished his conquests of the Korean peninsula and its peoples. The peninsula was divided into 10 segments called commanderies, and thus subject to Chinese law and rule. Korea, for a time, became part of China, and even when Korea became independent again, its cultural values were greatly changed. The Chinese introduced many things that impacted Korean culture and history. One of the most important was China's writing system, called Hanji. The Chinese writing system was composed of complex characters which, depending on origin, could represent ideas, words, or sounds. Hanji was a step up for Korea. Previously, Korea had no written language. Further, with the introduction of Hanji, many Chinese concepts, especially philosophical ones like Confucianism, became a part of Korea's culture. There was a problem, however. Hanji evolved to help the Han people of the Yellow River express their language. Chinese is off of the Tibetan language tree. Koreans spoke a language from a different language tree, the Northern Steppe languages, and therefore Hanji was a poor way of writing the spoken Korean language. By the 15th century, Korean kingdoms had already tried two different writing systems to replace Hanji, but to little avail. The first system, Itu, the clerk's writing system, was complex and produced ambiguous meanings. Itu evolved from an underscript system, that is, a system written next to Hanji to provide Korean sounds for Chinese characters. The second writing system to evolve, Hanja, was slightly better than Itu, but was still unable to convey the Korean language in any precise fashion. One of the main problems was the difference in grammar. Mandarin Chinese has a very simple grammatical structure of subject, verb, object, and especially in classical Chinese, meaning can be very dependent on context to grasp. Korean, like Japanese and Turkish, has a grammatical structure with modified verbs at the end and is very hierarchical. Those modified verbs express a significant amount of information that alters the nature of the meaning, including the relation between the people speaking and the expression of existence or negation of the thing. Koreans were faced with a distinct problem of being unable to properly express themselves in writing through Hanji or the other two systems. However, the Korean elite had wholesale bought into using Hanji in Chinese culture, shaped their entire worldview. They saw Korea as China's little brother and the country closest to, in the Chinese minds, the most important civilization in the world. Change was slow to come for Korea and its language issues. The tipping point came with the realization that metal movable type, used for printing since the 13th century, could be made more effective if the characters were less complex. Enter King Sejong, who reigned from 1419 to 1450. Sejong did many interesting things during his reign, including reforming parts of the government and establishing a central hall for scholars. After establishing a learning hall, Sejong noted that the country's Chinese-based writing system was, quote, too complicated, imperfect, and inconvenient a system for Koreans to use freely in expressing their own ideas and thinking. Because too many Hanja, Chinese characters, were involved in it, Koreans were in great need of their own letter with which they can write the Korean language. To that end, Sejong gathered his scholars and commissioned them to analyze the nature of language itself, and then construct a language which would best convey spoken Korean. By 1444, a new written system for representing the Korean language was ready. The system was officially introduced in a 1446 edict. The result for which Sejong had striven did not come to pass, however. Even though the scholars had taken such steps as arranging the simple characters into blocks like Hanji, or giving symbolic meaning to the vowel characters, the educated and therefore literate portion of Korean society rejected the new language. To the literate community, who had struggled to learn Hanji and embrace the cultural contained within, The new script was anathema. They called it Omon, deriding it as sound speaking or the vulgar language. It had none of the illustrious heritage or baggage of literature that Chinese possessed. Further, as a literate elite, why would they want a simple language which anyone could learn? Written language was the stick by which they measured their power and proved their superiority. If anyone could read and write, well then, no one would be important or special. Surprisingly enough, the newly introduced characters survived. The script became used as a subscript for clarifying Hanja and was taught to women and children. It was not until the turn of the 20th century that the characters were dubbed Hangul and began to be widely used. The newer writing system was significantly different than Chinese and is the world's only featural language. That is to say, the written characters mimic how the mouth makes sounds. Take a look at the characters above. Look at the symbol representing k. Say that consonant a few times. Do you feel your tongue touching the roof of your mouth? Now look at the symbol again. It looks like a tongue touching the palate, doesn't it? The vowels, however, were designed to have symbolic import in hopes of winning over the literate elite. The symbols break down to a dot, representing the sun, and a vertical line representing the heaven, and a horizontal line representing man. This is the end. Have a pleasant day.